Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vikas Swamiti Namani. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So we are beginning today on session 3 of advancing in Krishna consciousness through the lockdown, during the lockdown. Today is part 3. Today we'll be discussing reading Srila Prabhupada's books during the lockdown. We're going to go over importance of reading Srila Prabhupada's, some of Prabhupada's quotes, and how to read. Of course, you all know how to read, but what I mean is how to read Prabhupada's books in a way that is effective and steady continuously. All right, we started a little late, so we may finish late. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. Today's session is part 3. Okay, reading Srila Prabhupada's books. Using the lockdown to practice good sadhana and advance in Krishna consciousness. We mentioned the good sadhana. Some of the points are here. Sleep timings should be sleep early, wake up early. Rising early, following the morning program. Reading primarily Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. Hearing lectures of Srila Prabhupada, and whoever your Diksha Guru is, you can hear their lectures also. Learning and memorizing shlokas, preparing bhoga for Krishna. And although this doesn't come in good sadhana, but it will surely help reducing TV time and electronic asatsang, Facebook, YouTube, etc. Reading Bhagavad Gita, reading today's session. Okay. Now the vast majority of ISKCON devotees have joined this movement after reading Srila Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada himself said this in the beginning, that all our success in this Krishna consciousness movement is due to our books, because of wide distribution of books. So by distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, many people came in contact. And as we'll see, that these are not normal books. They change people's consciousness. They change people's hearts. Okay, those who did not come by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, they surely stayed by reading Srila Prabhupada's books. Not only stayed, but they grew, became enlightened, developed their faith and knowledge through the books, and they were able to then engage and therefore remain in the movement and go on and on. So when we speak about books, Srila Prabhupada's books, we are mostly speaking about, when we talk about ISKCON's books, we talk about Srila Prabhupada's books mostly. In ISKCON, when we say reading, we refer to reading, read regularly. So that means Srila Prabhupada's books. The main books of ISKCON are Srila Prabhupada's books. Now, Srila Prabhupada wanted also that other books be written, so many others. And it has, and they have been writing. So he mentioned that the books should be based on his books, his purports, and his words, his teachings, his lectures. So everything is based on his books, his teachings. So Prabhupada wanted that. So those books are complementing Prabhupada's books. But every devotee of ISKCON, follower of Srila Prabhupada, should be fully versed in Srila Prabhupada's books and should be regularly reading Prabhupada's books. Okay, aside from the other books. Srila Prabhupada's books contain all knowledge needed to be Krishna conscious. He said himself that whatever we need is there. And many senior devotees and elevated devotees have said the same thing, that Prabhupada's books are complete. Everything is in it. Of course, for preaching or for study purposes, after reading Prabhupada's books at least 3 times, all of them, then we may look at other books. But the need is not there actually for attaining Krishna consciousness. So I was saying that, yeah, these books contain everything to be Krishna conscious. So these books are not normal books. Like we know so many books in the shops, in the libraries, all over. We can get so many books, different books on different subjects, even spiritual books by other societies and other people, so-called maybe scholars in Shastra, Pandits. Okay, there are so many other books. Okay, but these books are not normal. We can see that when we read them, and we can see the result when someone else reads them. Simply by reading these books, people change in consciousness. Their outlook changes. They get a change in heart. So it's something which seems to be penetrating our senses and penetrating the sensual level, penetrating mental level, the mind, penetrating intelligence, intellectual level, and it goes direct to the soul. The words of Srila Prabhupada, they enter directly to the soul. They purify us. And we feel a certain vibration when we read. So these books, they elevate us, they sustain our spiritual life, and they help us to develop deeper knowledge and transcendental knowledge and renunciation by which we can advance in bhakti. So as I'm saying, as I said that these are not normal, they are transcendental books, they are spiritualized. By coming in contact with these books of Srila Prabhupada, one experiences a change, and they get a taste of Amrit, a taste of spiritual experience, a rasa, which makes them want to read again and again and to relish it deeper and deeper. And those who respond to that, anyone who begins to regularly read Srila Prabhupada's books, gradually, we see that they become devotees. Personally, we experience when we do book distribution that we distribute these books. And when we come back to the same people after a long time, then we see that there's been a change in, these people have changed. There's been a change in heart. And those who didn't read the books, we can tell. And those who read the books, we can tell because they're different. Okay, so in this way, we have seen that such an impact has come about by these books. Even when we are preaching, we tell people to read these books, new people. They begin reading. Before properly chanting, we actually tell people they should read first, even before chanting. Because by reading, we make a connection with Srila Prabhupada and with Krishna, and we get purified. And then we understand why we have to chant, and then the desire comes to chant. So generally, when we are preaching also, the first step is they should read the books, connect them to the books. So when they start reading these books, we see how they change gradually. And they become Prabhupada followers. People who are normally not, they're not in ISKCON, they don't know Prabhupada, they don't know anything about ISKCON and our systems and our teachings. After reading the books, they become so attracted and they take up all the, whatever we are doing, because they can understand this is something so great. I'm feeling it. I feel a spiritual experience. I feel a transformation of consciousness. Envy, lust, anger, greed, these are all decreasing. So after experiencing that, then they decide that, okay, I want to follow more. What is it that I have to do? So in this way, Srila Prabhupada said, all our success is due to these books. People read these books, they study them, they absorb and follow the teachings, and therefore this movement has grown. It has grown because of the books, Srila Prabhupada said. So previously, in Europe and America, there were many versions of Bhagavad Gita and different Shastras. But there were no devotees. When Srila Prabhupada's books went, especially his Bhagavad Gita, so many devotees appeared. And so many became so powerful spiritually that they began to preach and change people within their countries and all over the world. This is continuing. Okay, so these books, they're like, you can say, drops of mercy from Krishna. Krishna has manifested his mercy through his dear servitor, Srila Prabhupada, and through these books. So by coming in contact with the books, we come in contact with Krishna, and directly we can experience transcendence. This we'll not know. I guess all of you have read books here, but when we read the books, you'll understand all these words that I'm speaking about. That these books are practically, we can say that they are mercy drops. We can get mercy of Krishna and of Srila Prabhupada through these books. They are not normal books. If we take them into our life and read them and implement their teachings, then we experience some kind of revolution in our life. And we can see a revolution happens in a country because of this. A whole country can change. Now, Russia, once they try to ban Bhagavad Gita in one part of Russia, in main part of Russia, they're not letting devotees build the temple. They allow all religions to build their places, but they're seeing that this movement is growing. It's a danger, practically. So they're stopping. Others are not a danger, it looks like. They're allowing them to practice. So people can realize the power of this movement through the books. Srila Prabhupada once was asked by a reporter, how are you writing these books? So Prabhupada immediately answered without any break that Krishna is dictating to me. So the reporter was shocked. This was in America. So now there was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada next to him who thought that he tried to explain that, said, no, actually what Prabhupada means is that in his mind, he gets some inspiration from Krishna. He tried to explain it away that, okay, not literally Krishna. Then Prabhupada turned to him and said, no, Krishna is dictating these books to me. So that was recorded actually, that these books of Srila Prabhupada were directly given to him by Krishna. He dictated the words. So this is the power of these books. We are so fortunate to come into this movement and to come across these books, which can take us to Vaikuntha. Prabhupada said, by reading Srila Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Devotion, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, or what is that? Krishna book. Did I say? Yeah, Krishna book. So any of these 4 books, if anyone reads, Prabhupada said, they'll become a devotee. Read it again and again. Why once? So therefore, Srila Prabhupada emphasized that all his devotees, all his followers, members of ISKCON should read his books and become well versed in them. And that will be success in your spiritual life. One may ask that if the Yuga Dharma is chanting Hare Krishna, why are we emphasizing reading? In fact, in ISKCON, many people don't emphasize it, but they should. It's very important. So one may ask why it's not being emphasized. Why we are emphasizing it? And the answer is because, yes, chanting Hare Krishna is enough, but Prabhupada said, our rascal mind is not going to allow us simply just to chant. It will come up with so many ideas. It has so many contaminations that we have to read. We have to, for conviction, to become convinced, and to awaken bhakti by hearing pastimes of Krishna and these things. Otherwise, we can just hear Krishna Leela, but there's so many anarthas in our mind. Prabhupada called it our fertile brain. Just like when there's fertile soil, if I put water, so many plants grow there, so many things, weeds, grass. So Prabhupada said fertile in the sense that so many things, ideas are coming in our mind. We just don't want to, we can't just follow the system. So Prabhupada emphasized that we read the books regularly. We're going to look at some quotes now, how this is so important. Srila Prabhupada mentioned this, okay? And personally, when we speak about books of Srila Prabhupada, we are speaking about Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, primarily, mainly, the purports, where they are purports of Srila Prabhupada. All are important, but regular reading should be based on Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. I began by reading small books, then I read Science of Self-Realization, then Bhagavad Gita quite a few times, then Srimad Bhagavatam, and then Chaitanya Charitamrita. And every time I read these books, especially going to different ones, other higher books, I experienced a profound experience spiritually of consciousness, changing consciousness, and deeper realization of Krishna and Guru. Of course, not full, I'm not self-realized, but I got the understanding that there is transcendence, there is a Krishna, some perception. Anyone, you can also do that just by reading. So I had a great experience. And after reading, I felt a change. And when I felt the change, I read more. And also I became enthusiastic. So I have seen this personally, that people who we preach to, who come in contact with us, when they take to this reading seriously, they change and they advance very fast. We use it as a way to measure. We meet different people. Who's going to advance? How are they going to respond to these teachings of Krishna consciousness? So we saw that those who take up the reading seriously, they advance very fast. And we don't have to tell them, we don't have to push them. They start chanting, they do everything. Okay, so therefore, the whole purpose of this seminar is that we have a lockdown now in many places, people at home. So use your time wisely. There are different sadhana activities we can do. Out of them, reading is very important. It is the, you can say, the root out of which everything will come. Reading is a recorded kirtan, Prabhupada said, because he spoke all these books, purports, and then they were recorded and written down. So this is kirtan. And so we have, Shravanam is most important in bhakti. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Vandanam. So we start with Shravanam. Shravanam means hearing. So reading Prabhupada books is like hearing. We are hearing his words. Okay, so that will be it will be the impetus, the factor that will help us to advance. Reading will sustain us and give us enthusiasm and give us great eagerness to advance and motivation. And when the reading stops or becomes less, then we can see people have to be pushed for advancement. Okay, so now having said that, we want to look at, first of all, let's look at a list of the books of Srila Prabhupada. We are familiar with it. It's in our, it's any book, it's in any book that we read. Okay, now let's look at that. Okay, so here, there's a list of the books normally which appear in Srila Prabhupada's books in the inner page, all of the books he wrote. Okay, quite a few there. Okay, but now notice one thing, that number 1, 2, 3. These 3 books, most of the other books are derived from these 3. Maybe with the exception of 1, 2, 3, Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, Sri Ishopanishad. These are separate texts. But out of this, 28, let's say 11, these are conversations. Okay, now let's look again. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So let's look at this. Krishna book, that's taken from Bhagavatam. Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then we have these 3 books. They are separate. Now, Light of Bhagavata, this is from Srimad Bhagavatam. Easy Journey, Bhagavad Gita, and some others. Science of Self-Realization, it's mixed. Topmost Yoga System, some parts of chapter 6. These are conversations. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is mixed. Path of Perfection, chapter 6 and others. Again, these small books, Bhagavad Gita, some Bhagavatam, mostly Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita again here. Rajavidya Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9 and some others. Yeah, Krishna Consciousness. Okay, and then these 2 are of course separate. Second Chance, Srimad Bhagavatam. Then these are mixed. Civilization, a Journey of Self-Discovery, mixed sources. Civilization and Transcendence, mixed. Laws of Nature has a lot of Srimad Bhagavatam. Renunciation to Wisdom. These are articles from Back to Godhead, Bengali version of Srila Prabhupada. Quest for Enlightenment, that mixed sources. Dharma, Srimad Bhagavatam, Beyond Illusion and Doubt, that is from a discussion of Srila Prabhupada on Western philosophy. Bhakti, this is some part taken from Nectar of Devotion. Spiritual Yoga, Srimad Bhagavatam. So now we can see that a lot of the books are just based on these three books. So practically speaking, if we read them regularly, it's like we are absorbing a lot of this other information. But do not neglect to read this. Actually, we recommend that you read all of Srila Prabhupada's books 3 times for a good understanding. Of course, I know some Maharajas will say we should read 7 times, including Bhagavatam. So we have a lot of things to do. We need a lot of time. We have to really stop our time using our time for other things like TV, Facebook, and YouTube. This takes so much time of people. There's a lot to read. So we can see how these are the 3 main books. We are saying this again and again because everything comes from there. So Prabhupada, whenever we spoke about reading, it's mentioned that we should, these are the books we spoke about mostly. Okay. So this is a look at the books of Srila Prabhupada. Now, next we are going to look at some quotes on reading Srila Prabhupada's books. Okay. This is a document we have which contains a lot of information and a lot of quotes from Srila Prabhupada about reading the glories. And then again, as you will see, that mostly we speak about Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. And if you want to be more specific, we are speaking about Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Mostly, there are many quotes where Srila Prabhupada said Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so I'm going to begin. There are many quotes. This has 11 pages, but I'm just going to take out some, I took some out, important ones. Okay, foundation stone, the books. These books, the quote, it's from a letter to Hridayananda Goswami. Actually, these books are the foundation stone of our movement. Whatever we are is resting on these books, reading and distributing them. This should be our only motto. Now, this is a clear insight into the position of the books in our movement. Srila Prabhupada is saying they are the foundation stone of our movement. And whatever we have is resting on these books. So reading and distributing them is the motto of our movement. When we have a leader, any guide, any person in ISKCON, the emphasis should be telling people to read the books and distribute the books. We read the books to get strength and we distribute them to propagate the movement in accordance with Srila Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order. Reading and distributing the books is our motto. This is important. It's our first quote. We should remember it. Next quote. Importance of Prabhupada books. The instruction given in my books is supposed to be personal instruction. When we read the Bhagavad Gita as it is understood that we are receiving personal instructions of Krishna. No physical barrier is there in the case of spiritual affairs. This is from a letter. Look, analyze this now. Prabhupada is saying that the instruction in his books is a personal instruction. We shouldn't think this book is published and everyone is reading it. It's a general, but it is. But when we read, you will get the instruction you need. And a lot of people will understand what I'm saying. How, when we have any question or doubt, the answer comes in our reading. When we read Bhagavad Gita as it is understood that we are receiving personal instructions of Krishna. So Krishna is personally instructing us. No physical barrier is there. We may think that, oh, I'm here, but Krishna, he was there 5,000 years ago. And now I'm reading a book and I'm in another country, in another place, in another place and another time. No, that is not the case with spiritual affairs. There is no barrier. We can access Krishna directly. Okay, 26, 28. Okay. Importance of the books again. In my books, the philosophy, this is a letter. In my books, the philosophy of Krishna consciousness is explained fully. So if there's anything you do not understand, then you simply have to read again and again. By reading daily, knowledge will be revealed to you. And by this process, your spiritual life will develop. You may please me the most by reading my books and following the instructions. Simply by reading Prabhupada's books, he becomes pleased by us. But not only that, our spiritual life will develop by reading. Very clear instructions here Prabhupada is giving, very clear. Okay, these are G, glories of the books. Now we are coming to I. I, you see here, next section is instruction. Prabhupada is giving instruction we should read and how to read. All right, first instruction, there's a quote, I didn't have the reference. Whenever you get time, read my books. Anytime we have, we should read. It's so important. Reading is a must. This is in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela. You'll notice all of these will be mostly either from Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, or letters. All of the devotees connected with this Krishna consciousness movement, I'm reading this. All of the devotees connected with this Krishna consciousness movement must read all of the books that have been translated. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and others. Otherwise, after some time, they will simply eat, sleep, fall down from their position. Thus, they will miss the opportunity to attain an eternal blissful life of transcendental pleasure. This is a very important instruction. Srila Prabhupada is saying, if we don't read regularly, we will fall down from our position. And we'll miss the opportunity of eternal blissful life. And therefore, he says, whenever you get time, read my books. He's telling, Srila Prabhupada is saying that we will miss the opportunity of spiritual life if we do not read. Very important. Each of these we'll find very insightful quotes. They're all so important. Regularly read, the next one. Please regularly chant Hare Krishna and read Srimad Bhagavatam. And very soon you will get other books also, like Bhagavad Gita as it is. Is this the one I wanted to read? Oh, yes. Okay. You will get other books like Bhagavad Gita as it is. Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And always read and talk about Krishna between yourselves. And always remember, this life is but a flash only. We have to seek after our eternal life in Krishna consciousness and be transferred to the spiritual world in the association of Krishna. Continue to keep your present attitude, and certainly even within this life, you will be successful in attaining perfection of Krishna consciousness. Can we see how Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing reading so much? And I noticed nowadays they don't emphasize it in ISKCON. They emphasize chanting, and that's also good. But Prabhupada, you can see how he's emphasizing reading. Practically, without regularly reading Srila Prabhupada books, one will be difficult or maybe not possible to attain Krishna consciousness. For us, at least. Actually, we, maybe villagers or people who are simple could do it, but for us. So now look at this part when he says that this life is but a flash only. Okay, we put so much emphasis on this life. This person is saying this to me. He did this to me. Why is he saying that? And so many things we get into. I want to plan my life and I had to get a good job, a good house. We have so much plans, but Prabhupada is saying this is just a flash. We know what a flash is, where anyone who's taken a picture, it's just a second. So this is a flash. We had so many flashes, so many lives. This is another life. Okay, but we shouldn't put emphasis on it. We shouldn't worry so much. We simply have to seek after our eternal life, be transferred to the spiritual world in association of Krishna. And how to do that? Regularly read, always read and talk about Krishna between yourselves. Okay, I'm 423.9. For one who wants to advance fast, I'll give a secret. I'll tell a secret. Srila Prabhupada said, if you become a preacher, then you'll advance fast because we please Krishna so much. as mentioned in 18.68-69 Bhagavad Gita. Krishna, after speaking Bhagavad Gita and giving the conclusion, he tells Arjun that you spread this knowledge far and wide. Teach that one who teaches this knowledge, he is very dear to me. He said, Idam param guhyam mad bhakteshu abhidhasyati bhakti mai para. Excuse me. Let's look at the two verses regarding preaching that Srila Prabhupada emphasized many times. So he says after the conclusion 68, 66, 68. This is the verse. Ya idam param guhyam mad bhakteshu vidhasyati bhaktim mai param kritva mam evaishyati asangshayaha. For one who explains this supreme secret, in other words, Bhagavad Gita, to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed. At the end, he will come back to me. Next verse. Na chattasman manusheshu kaschin me priya krittamaha bhavita na chame tasmad anya priya taro bhuvi. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. Clearly, Krishna has said that one who preaches is very dear to him. So those who preach can, in this very life, get spiritual perfection, who spread this knowledge. Now, Prabhupada is explaining in this letter how to become a preacher. You should all read very carefully Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, and should be able to answer all questions. Read these two books carefully, and only in rare cases approach him. Because previously everyone used to contact Prabhupada and ask him questions. But he's saying, if you just read these books, that's enough. It is important our students must be able to answer all questions for becoming preachers. By reading these, we can, sentences, then we can understand that here Srila Prabhupada is saying that to become a preacher and to be able to answer all questions, we simply have to carefully read Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. And that will help us. We will not need to ask him anything. Of course, the books are from him. He's speaking through the books. In one way, we are getting knowledge from him directly. Okay, so to become a preacher, we have to read. And when we become a preacher and spread this knowledge, very fast we will get spiritual realization of the knowledge and advance. So everyone should become a preacher. Prabhupada's order was that this is a preaching movement. We should all preach. We should all spread the books, spread the knowledge. To whatever our capacity can be done, we should do it. Okay. The next quote. Even having a busy schedule, one should read. This is very common. I cannot read. I'm very busy. I have so much. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to do that. Okay, let's see what Srila Prabhupada is saying. You should make effort to finish your 16 rounds whenever possible. As you are an important worker there and you have so many important duties, especially to take care of the cows, it may not be possible for you to stop your work for chanting 16 rounds. But as much as possible, you should try to fulfill the goal of 16 rounds daily. You should not fail too much short of this goal. That will not be good. Similarly, you must read Bhagavad Gita at least a few verses every day and think about them throughout the day. The best thing is to read one chapter daily. But if you can meditate upon a few verses of Bhagavad Gita every day, that is better than reading for simply 1 hour, then forgetting the topic until the next reading. Now, in this letter, we can see he's addressing to someone who's so busy, even 16 rounds are difficult. I'm sure you have that experience. But look what he's saying, that you should still read. Still, we should read, even if you have a busy schedule. But anyway, the lockdown is there. Mercy of Mahaprabhu. He wants to bring in the golden age. So he wants to smash this materialistic civilization. And we should all prepare by reading the books. Don't quote me on this. It's my personal opinion. But we should take this opportunity to read now and absorb. It may not come again. Okay, so read even if you have a busy schedule. Next, at least twice a day. All the devotees who desire to know may ask their questions to the elderly members, but still they are open to write to me for all questions. I reply each and every letter I receive. But it is better if simple questions are solved among yourselves in the Ishta Goshti class. Every one of you must read our books at least twice, in the morning and in the evening. Prabhupada said that once: morning 1 hour, evening 1 hour. And automatically all questions will be answered. We have doubts, we have many things which are not clear in Krishna consciousness. Simply, if we read regularly, there will be no doubt. Prabhupada is repeating this point time and time again. Okay, we are on I-11. Okay, as I said, many pages, many quotes. We are halfway through now. We can't go through all of them. I'm picking important ones. These are very important. The ones I pick. Okay. No need to read other books. Okay. Some people read other books. Prabhupada said there is no need by any of my disciples to read any books besides my books. In fact, such reading may be detrimental to their advancement in Krishna consciousness, except in certain authorized cases. For example, to read some philosopher like Plato to make an essay comparing his philosophy with Krishna's philosophy. But otherwise, all such outside reading should be stopped immediately. It is simply another botheration. If my students cannot even read my books thoroughly, why should they read others? I have given you teachings of Lord Chaitanya. What need is there to read Chaitanya Charitamrita translated by someone else? You are right to stop such reading. So only Prabhupada's books, of course, and books which are based on Prabhupada's books within ISKCON. But again, Prabhupada's books are the main books for everyone that we should read. Again, this point about reading 1 or 2 hours. I'm very much stressing at this point that all of my students shall be very much conversant with the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and that they should read our books very diligently, at least 1 or 2 hours daily, and try to understand the subject matter from a variety of angles. 1 or 2 hours. I mean, how many people here are reading 1 hour? It's difficult, I know. We try to do that in the ashram. Of course, we are in ashram. 1.5 hours, 2 hours. Moving on, page 125. Okay, every day. Be sure to read my books very carefully. Again, Prabhupada is saying Bhagavad Gita, then Srimad Bhagavatam, then Chaitanya Charitamrita. You should, these are now, I means instruction. These are instructions by Prabhupada. If we follow Sri Guru, we will attain perfection. So instruction is Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. We should read. We don't have time. We should read. You know, we feel sleepy when reading. You should read. Just read. Move on. Continue reading, whatever obstacle comes. How much to read? Regarding my books, everyone should read. I'm also reading. How much you should read and how much you should do other types of service, that has to be decided by each individual devotee. Because like I also have services of writing and giving lectures and other things, and I want to read. So everyone can make a system where they read, but also we must do service. Okay, it's important to do service. We look at a quote now, that simply by reading without serving somehow in the Krishna conscious movement, that will not give the desired result, Prabhupada says. Okay, now we are shifting. We are going from I to R. R means result. What are the results of reading Prabhupada's books? Now we are going to look at that. Result number 1. If you want to know me, Prabhupada would say, read my books. We want to know Prabhupada. We want to, because if we know Prabhupada, then we can know Krishna. If we approach Prabhupada through the mercy of our Guru and the mercy of Prabhupada's books, we can understand Prabhupada and his mission, then we can know Krishna. Otherwise, it's not possible, basically. When everyone should want to know Prabhupada. And how will we do that? By reading Prabhupada's books. Look at this next quote. How can the Supreme Personality of Godhead become established in our heart? Okay, I'm seeing this point. That is given in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 2. As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. By hearing Bhagavatam, the Supreme Lord is established in the heart. What a amazing, great event if that happens. What a great thing. And how will that happen? By reading Bhagavatam. Result of reading, again. So knowledge of transcendental nature of the birth and deeds of Lord Krishna is sufficient for liberation. In the Bhagavatam, the transcendental nature of the Lord is described in 9 cantos. And in the 10th canto, his specific pastimes are taken up. All this becomes known as one's reading of this literature progresses. Okay? Sufficient for liberation. We are reading a lot of quotes. I hope all of you are alert. Sometime when we start reading out, people tend to doze off or switch off. But it is very important. These quotes are giving us the doorway to develop desire to read and awaken our Krishna consciousness. Okay, next quote here. We are already towards the end now. Result of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to be heard from the beginning. Those who are fit to assimilate this work are mentioned in this shloka. One becomes qualified to hear Srimad Bhagavatam after many pious deeds. The intelligent person with thoughtful discretion can be assured by the great sage Vyasadeva that he can realize the Supreme Personality directly by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Without undergoing the different stages of realization set forth in the Vedas, one can be lifted immediately to the position of Paramahamsa simply by agreeing to receive this message. You see, why did Srila Prabhupada make this such an important part of Krishna consciousness in ISKCON? And this is the answer, that simply by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, one can be elevated to the highest stage. This is phenomenal. Okay, it's simply by hearing. Now, hearing, so you might say, but we're talking about reading. Well, as I mentioned, reading Prabhupada's books is the same as hearing, because Srila Prabhupada spoke this knowledge and then it was recorded. He said this is recorded kirtan. So anyway, where it says hearing, it's the same as reading. Okay, on to 6.2. Regularly attending the classes. Introduce the system in all centers of your zone, wrote Srila Prabhupada to a GBC. You will see that everyone becomes very much enlivened by these daily classes. We will become enlivened by hearing Bhagavatam, by reading Bhagavatam daily. Okay, we can hear lectures on Bhagavatam in the morning, every morning. Okay, this is how we can plan our sadhana during the lockdown period, that every morning we can hear a nice lecture of Srila Prabhupada or your Diksha Guru or your aspiring, who you're aspiring for. Okay, attending regular classes. Next, 5. We therefore ask everyone to take advantage of this great transcendental literature. One will find that by reading one page after another, an immense treasure of knowledge in art, science, literature, philosophy, and religion will be revealed. Ultimately, by reading this one book, Krishna, love of God will fructify. So this book, Krishna book, look at that. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, of course, as you know. We will get immense treasure of knowledge and love of God by reading Krishna book. So why are we not reading? We should. Benefit of reading, again, result. Simply keeping Krishna conscious books in one's house is described in the Nectar of Devotion, page 101, quoting Skanda Purana. Now, Skanda Purana is saying, result of keeping all these holy books in the house. A person who is constantly engaged in reading literature, enunciating the cultivation of Vaishnava devotion service, is always glorious in human society. Certainly, Lord Krishna becomes pleased with him. A person who very carefully keeps such literature at home and offers respectful obeisance to it becomes freed from all sinful reactions, ultimately becomes worshipable by demigods. Amazing. Okay, now I'm going to skip some because we are going, I think we should go faster. It is 7. Clearing doubts. To clear up these things, the best remedy is to discuss amongst yourself. All members regularly, all our books in the classes. then these doubts will be killed. Without reading books, it becomes hackneyed, and such obnoxious ideas trouble us. We get doubts, we get so much, hackney means hackney, like we just have one vision, we are not able to see the whole picture. Okay, so that is, now remain steady in Krishna consciousness. In order to remain steadily fixed in Krishna consciousness, there must be a sound philosophical understanding. Otherwise, it will become only sentiment. Whenever you find time, please read my books. To remain, we will remain steady in Krishna consciousness. Basically, that's the message. Okay, let me skip this. So much is here. Okay, I'll skip that. 24, C, 19. Okay, yeah. Reading and serving. Now, this is a very important part. Yes, reading my books will help you. Philosophy must be there. But if you do not also apply the philosophy by participating in all temple affairs like rising early, attending Mangalarti, performing devotional service, then simply learning the philosophy will have no effect. Okay, so we have to follow. I mentioned in the other part 1 and 2 about waking up early, and I mentioned about the morning program. We should follow that. But one more thing, temple services. We have to do temple services. Somehow we must be connected to the movement. We cannot, Krishna consciousness doesn't mean we are sitting in our house, simply reading, chanting on our own. You have to be with devotees. We have to be involved in services. Okay, this is important. So that will nurture our bhakti. Okay, let's see, I'll just read one more, I think. The last one, okay, the last one. The Srimad Bhagavatam is a transcendental sound representation of the personality of Godhead. Thus, it is the full representation of transcendental knowledge and religious principles. So, Hare Krishna, welcome back. We have seen these quotes of Srila Prabhupada, which are actually in his books. And if you're not reading the books, we will not have seen his quotes about reading the books. And we have seen that by reading Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita, our spiritual life will grow, our doubts will go, we will attain love of God. That is the highest thing. So, in our life, we have to incorporate reading of these books. If we want to be Krishna conscious, we cannot sustain spiritual life for a long time without this, without reading Srila Prabhupada's books. It's going to be difficult to maintain enthusiasm, faith, to keep doubts at bay, and to develop a great desire for serving and being Krishna conscious. So we have to make these books a part of our life. We have to incorporate it in our schedule. Everyone has different things to do, different priorities, but we have to keep Krishna consciousness higher in the priority level. Otherwise, whatever is your priority, that's what you will get done. There are many quotes. I just read, less than 1/3 or a quarter of them. All of them Prabhupada repeating again and again for us to read these books. Okay, now when it comes to reading the books, how shall we read? I don't think anyone here is very new. The system is that we read some small books of Srila Prabhupada, 1 or 2, then Science of Self-Realization, then we start on Bhagavad Gita, and then besides Bhagavad Gita, we have a Krishna book, Nectar of Devotion, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. That is on the other level, that same level. Then after we read Bhagavad Gita second time, which may be, we may read Bhagavad Gita, then some other, those books on that level I just mentioned, or we may read Bhagavad Gita immediately after the first time, again second time. Then we can begin to read Srimad Bhagavatam. It's advised to read Srimad Bhagavatam twice before reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, the next one. But if you think it's very difficult or you're going too slow, maybe you may read Srimad Bhagavatam once and then read Chaitanya Charitamrita. Okay, how to read? Yes, we have to read Srimad Bhagavatam. Otherwise, we will not understand properly, we will not understand the science of Krishna properly. And we have to read Chaitanya Charitamrita, because we'll not understand Gaudiya Vaishnavism. There's Vaishnava, Srimad Bhagavatam is read by Vaishnavas. Chaitanya Charitamrita explaining what is Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta, how and a deeper understanding of the Srimad Bhagavatam, how to apply it in our life to become Bhagavata, one who follows the Bhagavad Dharma. Chaitanya Charitamrita gives that knowledge by showing how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lived practically and how he implemented that knowledge. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhupada said that simply by following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, imitating his life, we can become a pure devotee. We'll see how he lived. And we'll see that he was always chanting and relishing Srimad Bhagavatam, particularly some sections and some verses, which are so important. When we read Srila Prabhupada's books, we have to come on that level to understand that Srila Prabhupada is not a conditioned soul. He's a Nitya Mukta Jeev, Nitya Siddha. He's fully liberated. He's not under karma and maya. Therefore, everything Srila Prabhupada wrote was personally, is perfect and spiritual. And it was, as Srila Prabhupada said, it was guided, dictated to him by Krishna. So we should read in such a way that we accept everything of Srila Prabhupada's words. There may be doubts in the beginning, but we can ask the doubts and clear and understand who is Srila Prabhupada and who is Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna is speaking, Prabhupada is writing the purport. We should have full faith. The way to read the books is to accept everything and not challenge, accept it. But in the beginning, you may have doubts. In the beginning, we can ask questions to fix our faith. Okay, but this is the way to read it. We cannot question, because the way of spiritual life is we have to accept some guide, and then we have to follow that guide. We can't question throughout. We have to overcome that. Seek association or instruction of senior devotees, and who can properly explain this to you so that you become clear. Okay, but we have to accept it fully. We cannot question. That is the system of parampara. Also, Srila Prabhupada's books, as we saw many quotes, are the main books of ISKCON. So the main books we should base our life and read. There are some people saying we should write, unfortunately, in ISKCON, that we should write other books. Now, these books are all, or they are saying that before reading or studying Srila Prabhupada books, we should read other books of some other devotee, okay, or some other guru. No, we can read Prabhupada's books directly. Prabhupada said that his books are the main foundation stone of this movement, and they will be the guiding books for the next 10,000 years. Okay, so we can rest assured that if we base our life on Prabhupada's books and distribute them and give people, this is the perfection. We are acting out the order of Srila Prabhupada, and we will benefit people so much. When to read Srila Prabhupada's books? You can decide that, but as we read in the quotes, it's advisable to read at least twice a day. I would recommend in the morning, 20 minutes, maybe. You can read Bhagavad Gita, and then later in the evening, you can read Srimad Bhagavatam, 1 hour. Okay. Of course, those who have not read Gita, better not to start on Bhagavatam yet. And when you read Bhagavatam first time, then you can read only Bhagavatam maybe. Okay, so when to read, you can decide it, but morning is good. In the morning, you can read maybe another book of Prabhupada, a small book or something, 20 minutes. You may not have 2 hours in the morning. Later on in the evening, before sunset, it's good to read at least 1.5 hours, 1 hour, 2 hours if you can, of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it will make a profound change in our Krishna consciousness. Our chanting will be improved, our desire to advance, and everything will be, our experience of Krishna consciousness will be enhanced by reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so, that is the time for reading. And which books to read, I just mentioned that before. Okay, you can also read Bhagavad Gita in the morning and Bhagavatam in the evening. For those who have already read Bhagavad Gita and are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, maybe for a second time. I recommend one thing: when you are reading, you go away from people's vision. Go and hide somewhere, because if you're in public somewhere, they'll come and start talking to you. So it's good to go in a corner somewhere where no one is there. That is recommended. Before reading, it's good to take a bath and be fresh. But if you cannot, just at least wash your face, wash your hands and your feet. The idea is that we should be fresh to absorb the subject matter. Okay, so there's no rule you have to bathe before. But if you do, it will be good. And if you don't, then at least, as I said, just wash your feet and hands, and you can wash your face, put tilak, and then sit down. Put your phone on silent. It's advisable. Put your phone on silent, and you can just maybe if you put it off, it's better. Or if it's some urgent thing, then you can put it on vibrate, so that if a certain call you're waiting for can come. So that brings to the end of this part. All right, we are nearing 1 hour. If anyone has any question, you can ask me either on the chat or here by the mic. Okay. I've unmuted. You can, if you want, you can ask. So, okay, Hans, you have a question?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Prabhu, I'm currently reading Brahmacharya in Krishna Consciousness and Bhagavad Gita. So, if I'm reading twice a day, so which time to read which book? What would you suggest for that? Or should I read in every time? Should I read both for some time simultaneously?
Okay, yeah. So if you're reading 2 books, I found when we read Bhagavad Gita in the morning, the mind is sharp and fresh, and then the teachings, they stay throughout the day. Whatever you read, you meditate on it. So these philosophical books are good to read in the morning. Brahmacharya Krishna Consciousness, you can read in the afternoon. You can even read in the evening. You can read Bhagavad Gita again in the evening, 5:30 or 6, or towards the end of the day before sunset. Okay, Brahmacharya, more relaxed. It's not philosophical. So you can read it in the course of the day, after lunch, in between here and there. That's, there's no strict rule. I'm giving you some idea, guideline. But philosophical books are good in the morning. That's what I saw. Either morning or towards the end of the day, away from the busy time. Mind is peaceful somewhere towards sunset, before that, and around when you wake up in the morning, before any other matters have come in your mind. Yeah, that's the answer.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, yeah. Okay,